All right, so I'm here with Dr. John Murphy with AgXplore today. And John, I read a white paper on calcium. Man, let's just open this up. Tell me more about this. I mean, I'm thinking overall it's quality, but this was about apples. You wrote this. What's up?
Yeah, definitely. So the idea behind this paper was simply to put published research behind what our recommendations are, right? We go out, we do lots of grower meetings, but we want people to understand, man, there's a lot of science behind what we're recommending. And specifically when we get to these specialty crops, one thing I've really learned is, man, you get to a specialty crop, it's nothing for them to make 10 passes a year on that. When we're thinking corn and soybeans, we might get 2 or 3. But when we think calcium and we think these specialty crops, it's all about quality. And so I think about it, man, when you go to the grocery store and you walk in or your wife walks in and you're buying apples, what would pull you to those apples, right? What are you guys looking for?
I like the crisp ones. I mean, that's what I like.
Yeah, you like the crisp ones. You like the ones that are nice and clean on the outside that still have that nice taste, right? We call it shelf life.
Okay.
And that's what calcium is really about when we're thinking these apples and a lot of these specialty crops. It's about keeping the outside of the apple nice and clean, right? There's a disease called bitter pit when we think about apples, and it literally just gives you brown spots around it, and it softens it, and it takes that crispness away. So when you guys are at the store, that's not something you would go for.
So why does calcium matter?
Yeah. Yep. So calcium is a key component in cell walls. When we think about
so
plants.
Structure, we're talking about plant structure.
Yep,
okay.
It's all about that structure. And so what we're thinking about is how do we keep the structure looking good, but then how do we keep it tasting good, and how do we give it shelf life? Because a lot of our fruits and vegetables are getting picked, they're getting put on a truck, it might have refrigeration, they're getting hauled, we're unloading it, but then how do we keep that looking good when the consumer comes in?
Okay, so we know calcium's important.
Yep.
And it's all about the cell structure and the walls. So we're building the plants.
Yep.
So we're finding ways to build better plants. If we're building better plants, there's a lot of timing to this.
There is.
Is it like in the soil beforehand? Is it foliar? Like when should we do this?
Yep. So specific to calcium acetate, when we're thinking apples, we're the idea that we're after bloom. Right. So we think about those beautiful blooms that we see on our apple trees. So we've gotten through that point, and it's a foliar application. So one thing I've learned about these specialty crops is we're getting multiple applications, and we're really spoon feeding, right? We're giving a little bit, and then we're giving a little bit more because we're trying to maximize that efficiency and make sure it has the calcium when it needs it, right? With apples and things like that, if we're looking at that large fruit, once we miss that window or we have that disease, there's really no going back and trying to salvage it.
So we're talking apples in this white paper.
Yep.
And so let's back up for a second. White papers are a study.
Yes.
Okay. So somebody did a study on this. Have we ever tried this? Is this a trial as well? And do you have like results from it?
Yes. Yep. So the idea behind it is there's 4 or 5 published research papers that we built our trial around.
Okay.
And then we built our protocols around. And so specifically in that one, we looked at bitter pit because that's a huge issue we saw. And using that calcium acetate reduced that bitter pit around 15%, right? Depending on which trial it was. But that's huge when we're thinking specialty crops.
And so when we talk specialty crops, arguably in the Midwest, we talk corn and beans a lot. But this is not just apples. This could be like canola, might be specialty, sunflowers, probably specialty. What about like tomatoes? Like if you want to make like goulash, I want a softer tomato.
Yep.
I don't want maybe the cell wall structure. Is that less calcium then?
No. So it's just about where the plant's going to put it. So when we think about an apple, they're built for firmness, for crispness, right? For the majority. And so when we're thinking those others, when we think vegetables, we still utilize it, right? We have some huge growers over in that Kentucky, Illinois, even down into Florida, but it's about still enhancing it because when you think about that tomato, you still want it nice and clean on the outside. You want that beautiful color.
Okay.
And so it's about that quality. And I love that you brought it up because when we think quality, it can go beyond that specialty crop, right? It can go to what you were talking about, canola, sunflower, wheat. We just measure the idea behind that slightly different. We talk about protein. We talk about oil.
I got you. Okay, so calcium is important. We got that. We know it helps the plant cell structure wise. We kind of know when to put it on. Okay. What else are we missing here? So you guys have done a study and you wrote a white paper on this study. So of the papers that you read that people had published stuff on it, what were the findings? You said 15% one time, but is it better than that?
It can be. So you can see that. What I like to do when we did this is I think there are 4 different studies. I actually talked to an apple agronomist out on the East Coast to get their own personal opinion on it. And so we saw that idea that, yes, but that's kind of our average that we're looking at across the board.
Okay, gotcha. So with these studies, you took it and then you applied it, like application, and did your own study with this with AgX, correct?
So parts of it we have. So the majority of the white paper is what other people have done.
Okay.
Because there's we call it third-party research or CROs, and everybody wants to say, okay, it's great that it worked for you, but really, what does the science say? So that's really the take-home behind that is what does the science say to it?
Okay, any education we do it to try to make something better for the future.
Yep.
So now we've learned something. Calcium's important. What did we do to make it better?
Yes, so we put it as a calcium acetate, right? So let's tie it to potassium acetate. A lot of people know about potassium acetate.
Okay.
So calcium acetate, the acetate is literally a sugar type molecule, and it's native, or it's actually formed within the plant. And so when we think about applying an acetate, it's a really small molecule. The plant already identifies it, and so it enhances the uptake. Just like with a potassium acetate, it's 4.5 times more efficient than any other type of potassium. And so we put that calcium with a source that enhances the uptake and that utilization.
Gotcha. So we got steroids for plants.
Yep, definitely.
Not necessarily steroids, but acetate. It makes it better, makes it stronger all around. Okay, so AgX has a product for this. It's intake, correct?
So intake helps us pull that nutrient in.
Okay.
Right. So that's a way that we mobilize it. So I love it that you brought that up because it's one thing to get it in. It's another thing to get it moved where it needs to be.
Oh.
And so our intake is what we like to call a technology, which can be a scary word, right? But it's simply, it's science-based, but it shows that it enhances the movement because we can get the calcium to the leaf. We can get it in the leaf, but if I don't get it to the apple, it doesn't do me any good.
And so when you're saying leaf, this intake is a foliar application that helps the plant get it to the right spot.
Yep, it is. And so we mix it with the product. And by putting it with the product, it enhances everything else that we're doing with it.
Perfect. Well, I think we just learned a whole lot in a short amount of time about a white paper. What else? Anything else?
Yeah, so I just really like tie it back. Quality matters on every crop.
Yeah.
And I mean, one thing I've learned as I've traveled is quality matters on wheat because it's about protein. Quality matters on canola when we're thinking about oil content. Honestly, quality matters on our soybeans because when we think about what's found in a soybean, it's a lot of protein. And so quality matters. It just depends on what are you using to build that quality.
Gotcha. Well, hey, listeners, if you want more, Dr. John Murphy with AgX, and make sure to click the link to go to the white paper.